Do you know how ridiculous and offensive it is to compare Nelson Mandela's ANC to the freaking Hamas?
Ridiculous. Offensive. Let's hear what Nelson Mandela himself would say, shall we?
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. As far as Yasser Arafat is concerned, I explained to Mr. Sidney that we identify with the PLO because just like ourselves, they are fighting for the right of self-determination. A Jewish leader have any doubts about our stand, I am prepared to address them and to allay their concern, because they are a very important community both in South Africa and, of course, in the States. And I'm prepared to iron out any differences that might exist. But they must know what our stand is. Arafat is a comrade in arms, and we treat him as such.
Yup, that's what he said about Yasser Arafat. And that's how he think about the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. And if you know a little bit about history, the PLO back then was doing exactly what Hamas was doing. There's almost no difference between them. Nelson Mandela himself knew it so well, and he still say that Yasser Arafat was his comrade.
There was a lot of conflict in South Africa, but the ANC had never, at any moment, come up with a charter saying that they would kill all the white people, like dragging them from behind the tree, that kind of stuff. But the previous Hamas charter, my goodness, I can't even read it out loud. It would definitely violate the TikTok community rules. I already had one strike.
I think you said that Hamas is not a terrorist group, but in their charter, it says something about wanting to kill all the Jews. So how do you reconcile that?
First of all, they don't say this in the charter. They say terrible things about the Jews, so I quote in the Quran. The Hamas is part of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and part of that liberation organization is leftist, secularist. Part of it is nationalist, centralist, and part of it is religious. All the anti-colonialist movements in the Arab world were religious, secular, and centralist. And when they were united, they succeeded in decolonizing the countries. And when one group was more dominant than the others, it lost the support of the people, and people went to another ideological faction, not necessarily because they identified with the ideology of that faction, because they wanted to give it a chance. So in this respect, the Hamas cannot be reduced to its charter. Like the PLO could not have been reduced to its charter, which was also talking about replacing Israel with a secular state, and was considered, as you know, the PLO was considered a terrorist organization for many, many years on the basis of the charter. Charter is not the only way to judge as a movement. You judge a movement by understanding the origins of its emergence, by the composition of the people who run it, and the composition of the people who support it. This is the most serious analysis of the Hamas. And the Hamas, in this respect, is a political Islamic group that, exists in many other liberation movements in the Arab world, that is particularly now popular in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. By the way, it's not popular among the refugee camps in Lebanon and Jordan. It's not popular among the Palestinian exilic communities, and it's not even popular among the Palestinians in Israel. So for a certain group of Palestinians under the yoke of occupation, very ruthless occupation in the West Bank, and under the inhuman siege in Gaza, they seem to be the only liberation or the only faction within the liberation movement that is trying through armed struggle to bring an end to this. This does not turn them into a terrorist organization. They do use terrorism, as the Israelis do, as the Fatah did, as the ANC did, as the FLN did. Yes, both colonialist regimes and occupiers use terror, and those who fight them use terror. The definition of the meaning behind defining the Hamas as a terrorist organization is to delegitimize the whole Palestinian liberation organization movement and the right of the Palestinians to defend themselves. So, in that respect, I think it's important to realize if you want to get reconciliation in Israel and Palestine, you will have to legitimize the Palestinian liberation movement with all its factions.
And I guess this clears a lot of things up for you now. And that's the beautiful thing about the research on Palestine, which you actually don't have to say much things by yourself. The experts, the historians, even the historical figures like Nelson Mandela himself can say that for you. And many times you can just read documents and a lot of their talking points just collapse by themselves. I think Mr. Elon Pape already talked about the charter in the video. And last word is, if you reach this far of the video, could you please help Hanin's family rebuild her new life? Just click on the link tree in my bio. Scroll down, you can find Hanin Shamia's family. There are other families in the link tree as well. If you can, please donate to them. We're gonna save as many people as possible. And yeah, Palestine will be free.